Yeah, 3 games.
Yeah.
It's usually all the time for anyways.
I know, right? It's good enough. Okay, welcome in. It's a Friday. Normally when we have our No House Advantage NFL strategy show, because this is the NHA block. I mean, you're going to have an hour's worth of No House Advantage content. First up, it's Geoff and myself. Tyler is back in the fold in the house here producing, so make sure you say hi to him on your way to hitting the thumbs up and subscribing button. And then it's the NBA show. So normally, Geoff, we have a slate to look at on Sunday. That's usually the early slate, and it's usually as the NFL has set this up, a lot more games in the earlier slate than in the later slate. In this case, though, we were just talking about this before we came on the air. It's not quite one where if you have a stinker, you're kind of stuck with one. And it's not like 7 stinkers, which you can get every now and again on a 1 o'clock Eastern slate. This is cool. We have 3 games to talk about on this gigantic slate. As far as money slate is concerned, 15K, 5K to the winner on Saturday here for NHA. And we get 3 games, which I think is like a good number.
3 games is a great number for just stuff, betting. You got a chance to redeem yourself in the late slate for DFS, you get more to choose from. I mean, it's perfect. I love 3 game slates. Thanksgiving slate, one of my favorites. So, and I always forget that we do this now with the Saturday games. They used to have like 1 night game, I think, and now they made it like a real slate. So good call by them. The NFL's, they're pretty good with scheduling. Honestly, I don't give them credit for much, but that's like something I give them credit for. I like this idea. I wish they do the double Monday nighters a little bit more often, but other than that,
right,
pretty good.
Yeah, what's crazy is that I think that's coming.
Probably, right?
Yeah, like I really do think that's coming, where the NFL realizes that they can still make money hand over fist by having 2 games on at once in prime time. But like you said, we have 3 here to look at. I'm curious, where would you like to begin? Because you've got the Baltimore-Cleveland angle where seriously, looking at the lack of Lamar Jackson has put an interesting spin on this. You've got Buffalo-Miami, where there's clearly a sense of desperation in Miami, just trying to survive in Buffalo, the elements, what have you. Yeah. And then you have that first game where Matt Ryan is the only thing that I can think of when I see this game. Matt Ryan. So which game jumps out to you?
I think that, like you said, like from a prop perspective, the Miami Buffalo game is probably interesting just because of the weather factor. I'm most interested in the Baltimore Cleveland game here. Like just from my perspective, I think too, from No House, like we have some really high up props from that game. Actually, yeah, like multiple ones. So maybe we'll start there. I think J.K. Dobbins, 74.5 rushing total here. Like Gus Edwards is going to be back. We still have a rushing quarterback. I don't really know. I know where this projection is sort of coming from. It's not a projection. It's an over-under total in 74.5. And it's coming from the fact of playing the Cleveland Browns defense. But man, I mean, the public is on Baltimore. Saw a couple of videos on Twitter telling me that like Stefanski sucks here and like we don't trust Deshaun Watson yet. I don't know if I'm on that train. I'm actually on the opposite side of that game. And J.K. Dobbins to me, just like he's gonna have Gus Edwards in the backfield. He's gonna have Huntley, and he really like doesn't look very good. I don't know if you saw the Twitter video of him trying to run like.
Oh yeah, it wasn't good.
Wasn't good. So 74.5. Let's make this a high up play. I'm all for it. If Dobbins does get there, it'll just be, like he's going to need, Dobbins doesn't just need carries. Like he's going to need the Ravens to be out in front. So he's going to need Deshaun Watson to not be good. He's going to need Huntley to be good. And he's going to need the Cleveland defense to be bad as well. So there's a lot of things that would need to go in his favor to get over here. I just don't think all those things are going to happen. So pretty strong underplay right off the bat there.
I like it. I think when you look at this on a level of running the football, that's going to be the road less traveled, I think, to attack J.K. Dobbins in his own right. Like, I don't think he's going to be heavily played in his own right. And I think, if anything, you're right here, which is going to be a smart play to go under that. I'm going to throw another look. I don't know what happens in the game itself. I think if you got 3.5 at one point for Baltimore, that's fine. You mentioned that Public's on Baltimore. Somebody's on Baltimore betting this through 3 after it's already dropped from 3.5 to 3. So usually that's not like a sharp person, right? Who's like, oh, it's already dropped. Let me continue to bet it. Usually that's somebody with a lot of money in the public eye. But whatever, they're catching on both ends. How about this one? Under 8, it's a low number for him, and it's probably more sharp than not. But I don't even think it's contrarian. I think it's probably like a 4 to 3 point play here, but under 82.5 for Nick Chubb. This is a Ravens team that is dominating on the ground on defense, Geoff. And I do have a couple of quick numbers here for you. Just because they're dominating. Give me something here. They're dominating in the sense of they're only allowing a small amount. Let me find the exact number here for you. Of course, I blew by it, but all right, here it is. Since their bye, Baltimore's defense has allowed only 24% third down conversions. They've held opponents over their last 8 games, including what we just saw in Pittsburgh, to an average of 64 rushing yards and 3 yards per rush. I get it. It's Nick Chubb, but I think the defense wins the battle here. Yeah.
And to help your point, I mean, Cleveland's center has been out as well. Chubb hasn't been that good last couple games. Again, like my liking of Cleveland is more, I think Deshaun Watson is going to win this game, and he's going to be attacking a weak secondary. And I think Cleveland will look to take advantage of that too. So yeah, I'm fine with that prop. And as you mentioned, I mean, we can talk about these easy props. I mean, like, J.K. Dobbins under 74.5. That's not like that's not fooling anybody. But Chubb, you have a decision to make. I mean, do you like, he's not going to be, you could say maybe there'll be more unders on Chubb than not, but I don't know how popular an under it is. I mean, it's still like a leading rusher in the NFL. So yeah, I think that's one I'd be pretty comfortable with. I think when you just look at the situation and the game flow, I think a lot of things could go against them. So still got Kareem Hunt. Watson runs a little bit more too. Like, I mean, it's than Brissett did. So a lot of things not working in his favor in this game, especially. I think that, yeah, that's something I'd be fine going under on. And if you would take the under on that, I don't have Deshaun Watson's prop right in front of me, but I do. That's something that would mix up well with it if we go over on it.
240.5 for the passing yards, 1.5 passing touchdowns. You also have the interception here.
Yeah. So, I mean, Watson is definitely like, he's polarizing, because I think that will be a heavily owned under. That's a big total. It's way bigger than we're seeing across the industry. And, it's going to be a contrarian stance, but I think it's a good contrarian stance to take. I think a lot of things flow from it. The Chubb under, potentially even like, you could look to, I don't know if I like the Dobbins under. The Dobbins total is so big. I don't know if I would mix that in with like anything. Like you just go under. You don't need to like go over as a contrarian move just because you're taking over on Watson's passing. Like there's a lot of ways the Ravens can run the ball. It doesn't have to be all J.K. Dobbins. So Dobbins, I would just like leave out of it, but yeah, you can look at like Mark Andrews over with Deshaun Watson over, because I mean, like if Watson's throwing more, maybe Andrews is getting some points, something like that to that effect. But Watson is a good contrarian angle for me. I think that he'll be lower owned. I think there's still this, I mean, and sort of valid point though, like, he hasn't looked that good, but he made some pretty good throws in the last game. Like he is going to get it together eventually. And this secondary for Baltimore, it's not good, man. No, looking at some of the numbers they're giving up, like, only one quarterback this entire year has thrown for 17 or fewer completions against them. So they don't just allow plays, like they just allow a lot of simple throws to be completed. Like though it's a volume, it's an efficiency thing. Mitch Trubisky, 75% of completions last week. Like, come on, man. I mean,
that's so
I think I think Watson takes a step up here.
No, I mean, you're right there to illustrate that. I think if anything, Cleveland is either going to come in with an intelligent game plan to throw and stretch and throw to set up the run, if you will, which is a rarity, but when you run as well as Cleveland, or they're going to put their head down and try to hit and move a brick wall with a bare head and not be able to run the football, and then by force, by circumstance, have to throw and probably realize, hey, wait a second, we should have been doing this the whole time.
Yeah.
Before we move off this game, though, you bring up going over on Watson. You've got 3 targets. I'll give them to you as far as, maybe the reception. I don't know if the receptions would be a play here unless you have a sharp angle, but you've got Cooper with 67.5 receiving yards and Njoku with 55.5. And then Peoples-Jones is right there at 53.5. So, you're going to have Watson look downfield. I don't know, though, Geoff, if you have a lean, because clearly in 2 games, there's no established favorite, if you will. But these guys, I mean, their numbers are much higher than when they were with Jacoby Brissett. We know that.
Yeah. It is interesting. I mean, like, we have Njoku projected as a pretty solid fade. His numbers are just, it's like kind of like the J.K. Dobbins on the other side. I mean, it's just like really, really big. I mean, you're asking to get him 6 receptions to go over. That's a lot when you have 2 legitimate wide receivers in the mix as well. And Deshaun Watson likes to look downfield. Now, Njoku is a big downfield target too. So if you're going to do that and you want to mix him in somehow as like an over with the Deshaun Watson over, then go yardage versus receptions. That's just a massive total. Yeah. So I thought I heard some Christmas caroling in my background.
Is that?
I stopped. I'm like, thought I was gonna have to go shoo some people off my porch.
I was gonna say. I mean,
I don't know why. I'm just hearing stuff. Apparently, too much Christmas.
You guys don't celebrate Christmas up there. What's going on?
Yeah, got this thing called Boxing Day too. Right. No, I like Donovan. I like Donovan Peoples-Jones if you're gonna mix in and over. Okay. I think that's the. He's been really efficient, man. You look at just in terms of like his efficiency in turning targets into receptions, been really good with Deshaun Watson. He's just a solid receiver too. I think people are really like, he's a good athlete. He's a good athlete coming out of college. I think he's starting to find his way. His route tree has been like a lot bigger this year, and he just got a lower total. So I think both Cooper and Peoples-Jones could have big games here, but obviously liking the props on Peoples-Jones here. I think that their usage the last 2 games has been even. And even if Cooper gets a little bit more targeting, like Peoples-Jones are still small enough that he could go over too. So
is there anything else in this game here? I mean, you mentioned Andrews. You've got on the other side, Demarcus Robinson. I don't know. Tyler Huntley props. I have no idea. Maybe you go over a half passing touchdown because it's so low. But even then, that's based off if they're down. If they're up, I don't see the need to throw as much. So I don't know. With Baltimore, I think you nailed it with going under Dobbins. The other guys are basically Huntley and Andrews is a good one too, especially if you're running it back in that area. I don't know how much you trust Demarcus Robinson, Geoff, even at 38.5 receiving yards and 3.5 receptions.
Yeah. I mean, Denzel Ward out there, I think that's actually a good fade target. I think if you're going to go under or over, I would take the over on what is a big prop on Mark Andrews. I know like we kind of haven't projected for the under. He hasn't looked good, quite frankly, lately, but like the targets are there with Huntley. I think that the one thing with Huntley is he's going to target Mark Andrews. Like he's just going to do that. He's done it in pretty much every game he started. They averaged like 11 targets per game last year. And he was targeting him at will early in that game, but they kind of got ahead. They just didn't throw much. I'm talking about last week. So I think Andrews, I would actually trust more here than Demarcus Robinson. Just because of the matchup with Robinson's going to have a tough time with Denzel Ward. I really think that if this is actually, I'm kind of bullish on Mark Andrews bouncing back here. I like his prop to go over just across the board kind of. This is bigger number than we're seeing. So I don't think it's going to be heavily owned either, but and again, like the Ravens are kind of weird. Like, I don't think you necessarily need to correlate Andrews with anything else. I think Andrews is just a good overplay, much like Dobbins is just a good underplay. I'm not sure how much it correlates really because Huntley is such a run-first receiver or quarterback, excuse me. And, like all of his yards could just go to Andrews and he could still hit his under on his passing total. So,
all right, let's move to Buffalo, Miami, and then we'll finish up with that Colts and Vikings game. Reminder here, you're hanging with us on the NHA show. We have the NFL show, the NBA show, all in this hour. So hit the thumbs up, subscribe, as you already know on the Stokastic channel. But here's the thing. We have free NHA rankings projections for you on site. We also have the optimal lineups page where you can just plug and play multiple lineups. It's all broken down, 10 all the way down to 1-point plays. So we'll match your first deposit just signing up to No House Advantage. Use our code Stokastic up to $50. That's 50 on us, 50 with you. And you can start doing work right away with this $100. We're pretty high on going under Raheem Mostert's rushing yards, Geoff. He's sitting at 62.5. And at least our projections, this is one of our stronger plays on site. which would make sense, right? I mean, you got a team that's going to be most likely down or at least having to throw in order to compete and keep up. Chances are that Miami's not up 17-7 at the half because Raheem Mostert's rushed for 80 yards.
Yeah, it's a pretty big ask.
It's a low number, but it's Buffalo's defense. I don't know about the weather and everything else.
It's not even that low a number. Like, I mean, Mostert can hit it because Mostert does have that kind of like ability to get us like a couple 15-yarders and stuff like that. But even when Miami's been ahead, like they still try to pass the ball. I mean, I think the way I put it is, I think there's viability in taking Mostert to the over. If you're doing that, though, you're playing for like a very specific game script. You're playing for Miami to run the ball a ton, to run the ball down the throats of the Bills, and for it to be effective and to be ahead in the game. And then you're hoping that their defense holds up. I just don't know how likely that's happening. Like, what is that, like a 2% outcome? It kind of feels like it. So, like, there's scenarios where Mostert gets there, but I just don't think it's very viable. I just don't think that's how this game is going to go. I just don't know if McDaniel wants to do that or will even try to ram Mostert down their throats. And I just don't know if he's going to be able to do it anyways because of how good Buffalo is. So it's a pretty thin outcome. We're not like, I know we're breaking it up into games, but like we have 3 games to choose from. So sure. I think that just taking the under here is completely fine. I might say the only thing I'd say about it is maybe it's like more of a midpoint under for me. Yep. Those unders I kind of like a little bit better. Mostert does have that big playability. He could rip off like 70 yards on 10 carries, but it's still I don't see a ton. Like, I don't love the other side of it where you're creating a contrarian angle just based around a Mostert over.
No, I like that. And I think building, especially as you mentioned that around one prop in that regard, is probably not going to pay off like people believe it to. So Mostert would be the first one that people will see, I think, especially when we look at where we have optimals. The other one in this game that, I guess it just depends on how you see this game flow going, Geoff, is, and I'm not shocked, I'm not floored that we have popping up in our optimals a lot going under Gabe Davis 4.5 receptions, but it was a little bit of like, okay. I mean, is Josh Allen going to pepper Stephon Diggs the whole game? Is the weather going to be an impact to where they're not going to need to throw as much? Are they going to be up 35-3 and not have to throw? There could be other things that's why I wasn't floored by it, but that's another one that is popping up in this game as a pretty heavy under 4.5 receptions for Davis.
Yeah, for Gabe Davis. Again, yeah, like I think there's just so many factors working against Davis here. I mean, the 4.5 reception thing alone, like, I mean, just natural game flow. I mean, he just doesn't, he could just get 4 catches and go for like 100 yards, have a big game without going over that. But then, you've got a Buffalo team who's been running the ball more late, certainly, and running it well. I just don't know why they'd go away from it with the snow and like the situation that's forming now. So yeah, Gabe Davis under 4.5. I don't even really have anything to say about it. It's just a solid play. Yeah. I think I like it even more than the Mostert play. We have them both projected for similar, correct, kind of probably like, Mostert's under is a little bit heavier, but I like Davis just as much there. I think that's a pretty solid one to put up high up.
So we've got a couple of quarterback props in here. The obvious 2 wide receivers with Waddle, 58.5 for Waddle, by the way, 79.5 for Hill. So maybe not the typical numbers that you're used to, but again, it's the defense that's going to be, at least in the quarterback space, whether we have to factor in here. And then you've got Tua, where that's 242.5. Allen is actually pretty interesting at 237.5. I'm not sure if you look at either, maybe if you wanted to play the weather element to it, maybe one of these guys, it's probably going to be Allen, I think would be a little more contrarian. If you wanted to run like a midpoint play for an interception, that's available too for either of these guys. I don't know. Dawson Knox, Devin Singletary is another one. He's at 60.5 rushing yards. So I don't know if you can make the same argument as we did with Mostert, but I would be inclined to go under his rushing yards as well.
Yeah, again, I think there's more. I think going over on the Devin Singletary total is a better angle. Like if you're looking for like a high leverage play, Because I think a lot of people just go under on that. But I think there's more scenarios where Singletary, I know James Cook is getting mixed in, but like Singletary's still the guy there. I think they're going to rely on him more down the stretch in big games like this. So, and I think it's like a matchup where he could potentially do it, especially with just the weather there. As far as like, the passing totals in this game, that's what I was like, they're really interesting. I think that like, Allen's, I feel much better about going under on Allen. There's just such a big rushing component to his game. The Bills have been rushing him more. Their defense is playing so good. There's just so few scenarios where I think Josh Allen is airing this out late in the game, needing to save it. Whereas on the opposite end, the weather is a factor with Tua. And if you said, I'm just taking unders on this passing game across the board, I think that's a fine way to do it. At the same time, I think that like you could see a few more points than you realize in this game. And part of it may just come from a couple big plays from the Miami passing game, like it usually does. Like we've got guys out there like Waddle and Tyreek. It just takes like one cornerback to slip, fall. I mean, they're the ones that usually have more trouble in these scenarios than the wide receivers. So I have concerns about Tua in this game, which is why I kind of like Buffalo, but I don't mind it as a contrarian angle. I do think the thing I like about this game is just taking multiple unders on the passing game. You could maybe both quarterbacks. We mentioned Gabe Davis. Jalen Waddle, I keep wanting to like try and catch on the bounce back here, but like he's got like a 5.5 reception total.
Yeah, maybe you go over receiving yards if you're not playing a hill prop. I mean, I don't even see thing, Geoff, is I don't even know if it works where you can correlate the two and say go over one under the other. Both could go under, both could go over. Like,
they're very, you're right. I mean, they're such explosive players, and just the way the offense goes. I mean, it just takes like one little screen pass to go 50 yards, or one guy gets in a groove with a bunch of catches, and all of a sudden he's got 6 and like 90. And, so I don't know. You're right. There's not really much correlation there. I think just playing the projections with one or both of them, or maybe even leaving them out. I don't know. And just playing the passing yardages on the quarterbacks is fine too. But that's how I'm looking at this game with Miami and Buffalo. I definitely like the undercalls. If I was going contrarian, might look at the Singletary over or something. Maybe the Jalen Waddle over yards. But I think this one, you just play it simple. Take kind of what's given to you and move on.
Love it, man. All right. Speaking of which, anything else on that last game? Final couple of minutes. We can end with your guy, your man. I know you have a fat head on the wall of Matt Ryan, right?
Yeah, sure. He's got a fat head too. Be a great fat head guy.
He would be. Like, although it's like a fat. He's like he's got a skinny fat head,
right?
Like I've used that. I was big. I was like much bigger than I am now, right? And then I dropped a lot of weight. But I still, because I'm older, I still have like that spot, that pouch in the front, right? Like that little, like leftover gut stuff. So I'm like skinny fat. Now they call them dad bods, but it used to be skinny fat, right?
Skinny fat. Yeah. That's what we used to call it too. Skinny fat guys.
Yeah, exactly. Look, I went to high school with a lot of Canadians that somehow snuck over the border and went to prep school in northern Connecticut. So I picked up on a lot of lingo that I'm sure is from there.
That's probably exactly where you got it.
I'm telling you.
Look at all the stuff everyone's learning today. It's amazing.
And we all have to thank Canada for this. It's great.
Look, Matt Ryan over 0.5 interceptions. I don't know if we need to talk about that too much.
No.
Do we have an Alex Pierce prop up for this? Did we get Alex Pierce?
Yes. No, we do not.
No,
wait a second. I apologize. Yes, we do.
That's one player I wouldn't mind going over on for the Colts. Look, the Vikings secondary, most yards allowed to the wide receiver position. Alec Pierce averaging like 15 yards per catch. I like his over prop in this game. Like him as an over target here. I don't think that'll be heavily owned. We got 3 games to work through. This one, I feel like a lot of the props that I was looking through, this one just feels sharp. Like you're kind of just taking, like you roll with the projections kind of thing. If you want to correlate like Pierce and Matt Ryan to the over or something, I guess, but I feel like, taking a Matt Ryan interception, maybe like grabbing one receiver total that you're high on, like Pierce, maybe, Justin Jefferson or something like that is fine. But I like the other games a little bit more than this one for the props for Noah's advantage. Thielen under 5.5 receptions was another thing. I don't mind that. We got Hawkinson involved too. I think the Vikings could be up late in this game anyways because of how bad the Colts offense can be. So that's another under that kind of pops out, but don't really love like trying to correlate this game too much. The Cousins totals feel sharp again. Cooks is big, but like they could be up. So nothing I love that much. And a lot of these props from this game aren't projected highly for us, like as like high point plays. So kind of makes sense. But Pierce is one guy I wouldn't mind sneaking in lineups at all.
No, man. I think Pierce is an interesting one by all means, especially when you look at how many people are going to be loading up on Pittman, even Paris Campbell, as far as like maybe an outside one. Oh yeah, just to throw that out there. I'm surprised though. You're not going to go Matt Ryan interception.
No, it's the first thing I said.
Oh, I missed that. Jeez. You know what? I was so blinded.
Tyler's nodding. He heard me.
Yes, that's my fault. I was trying to pull up something on Jonathan. All right. See, I was all set up. My God, that's my fault.
Rattled by this.
My fault. I am. I make fun of you for loving Matt Ryan, and then you come around and say, no, I'm going to slam him. I don't even give you credit. I'm a terrible teammate, Geoff. I'm sorry.
That's all right, man.
Is there so anything else that, I mean, my God, good luck on this game, by the way. TJ Hawkinson is an interesting way. The receptions is just way too 4.5. But what about Thielen? 54.5 receiving yards for Adam Thielen. He's a guy we've talked about a couple of times. Sneaky number 2 in this offense, might be able to get over that in the first half.
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing over on Thielen, I do like there's a pretty big discrepancy between receptions and yards, isn't there? Like we got a 5.5 reception prop. Like I almost like playing the under on the receptions and over on yards. I mean, it's kind of strange. I think if you're looking to play Thielen as an over or like mixing him in for a low point play, I think that's fine. I mean, I don't have a problem. At the same time, if you just wanted to mix in the Thielen under, like we have that projected as a pretty solid under too. So yeah, he's kind of in a weird spot. Like I said, a lot of these players, the props in this one, they're not like pulling us towards one side or the other. Really. They're kind of just like, a lot of them are just stuck in the middle or where we don't have a huge lean on either side. So if you have a really big read here on how you think this game is going to go, you can definitely play that. Like I said, the one thing that stands out to me about this game is just how bad the Vikings secondary has been of late. So that's why I brought up Pierce. You can mix it in with like you said, everyone's probably going to be on the Pittman over. So maybe play like the Pierce over instead. But I don't want to sit here and say, oh yeah, take Paris Campbell's over too. He's at 52.5 yards and he averages like 8 yards per catch. So right. I don't really like that play either. I'm just not sure how we can take advantage of this situation. I guess that's the problem I'm having outside of like the Alex Pierce prop. So
no, the only thing that I think would be ultra, and I don't even know if this is contrarian, but maybe a high point play if you're building multiple lineups would be to like 9 or 10 point play over 87.5 rushing yards for Jonathan
for Taylor.
Taylor, and just hope that this is a close game in which the game is being kept close on offense because of him.
Yeah, and look, like the Vikings have gotten in a lot of games like that lately. Like that was basically the game against the Patriots. I know that the Patriots like kind of passed more in that game, but Jonathan Taylor's a special running back. He gets over 90 yards. You come back with like Jefferson and Kirk Cousins, and all of a sudden, like you've taken care of like your first 3. It's just a really simple correlation, right? So again, we don't have like super advantageous props to take advantage of, but these are high usage players who can easily go over these numbers. So that's certainly one way to approach it. I wouldn't mind creating a lineup like that if I was putting in 10, starting with something like that. It'll be really different. And then you could start hammering in those other easier plays, like the Dobbins under or something like that after you put in your Minnesota game stack. I think that's a really cool way to kind of make it different, a different lineup and still take advantage of like our projections and stuff like that. Awesome,
man. Awesome. Always a pleasure. We learned something as well. We learned a couple of things.
Oh, so, yeah. Always learning here.
Absolutely.
Stokastic.
All right. So make sure you hang here for the NBA version of this same show. Tyler's not going anywhere, like you all out there aren't going anywhere. Geoff has to catch up to that caroling group. So we're going to let him go.
No, do you want to know what it was quickly? My dog.
I'd love to know.
My dog got one of my kids' toys and she's out there playing with it and it's making a bunch of sound. And I was
I love you, or like big hugs, right?
I think it's like
touch
cat.
my tummy.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Anyways, she's gonna get in trouble.
I can't wait. You got to
Her
take a
toy
picture
now.
of that. Love it. Love it. All right, everybody. We'll see you. Have a great weekend. Oh my